So today we are starting with the introductory micro of economics on semester 1. So in semester 1 you will have the paper of MME, then stats, and the third one is the introductory microeconomics. Now first of all I will explain the content part of it, that is the reading, changes in that reading, or next part will be basically the past year question, in what way we will be conducting the lecture, how we will be providing you the problem set in terms of the other question for the practice purpose, how many lectures will be taken, what will be the end semester exam format. So all things, all detail I will be explaining in this first lecture. So first is the content part. So the content part of introductory micro. Now it is divided into 4 units. First of all, unit number 1 is Introduction to Economic Trade-off, and in that introductory unit there are 3 chapters, chapter number 1, 2 and 3 from ManQ. So mainly you have to refer the ManQ book except for unit number 4. So first topic is Introduction to Economic Trade-off. In that Introduction to Economic Trade-off, the significant chapter for examination point of view that will be relevant is chapter number 3, Interdependency and Gains from Trade. So this is a part of micro which is in terms of the gains from the trade, specialization. That means if there are 2 countries producing 2 different products by using labor as the single variable factor, then which product will be specialized by which country, that what will be the pattern of the trade. So we have to calculate here the comparative cost, absolute cost, advantage, and then determine the pattern of it. So as far as question is concerned and the difficulty is concerned, main chapter will be this chapter number 3. Then unit number 2 is how market works. So we are basically introducing you about how market works, that means how a competitive market works. So a competitive market works basically through the market forces. Market forces are demand and supply forces. So you can see chapter number 4 is market forces of supply and demand. Then we talk about elasticity and its application, supply, demand and government policies, like government policy in the form of control on the price, price ceiling, price floor, consumer and producer surplus and efficiency of market, and again the application of international trade. So again a new chapter, right? यहाँ पे भी explain करना है, and then next chapter number. So you can see chapter number 3 and chapter number 9 as part of the international. Then unit number 3 is role of government. In that role of government, chapter number 8 is application, which is cost of taxation. Then this chapter is basically explaining when a market will fail. So unit 2 will explain how market works. Third unit will explain when market will fail. So market usually fails in the case of externalities, market fails in the case of provision of public good. So when market will fail, government will provide those goods. So why in the case of externality market fail, that is one thing, and how that externality problem can be overcome by the government. Why market cannot provide the public good, that is another chapter, and how government can provide that public good. So unit 2 is how market work. Third unit is mainly when market will not be efficient. Fourth is a very small unit, and in fact individual decision and interaction, chapter number 1 and 2, but ye game theory related hai. But one chapter which has been added is chapter number 21, but 21 chapter is entire household, like consumer choice का complete topic है, budget line, indifference का, price effect, substitution effect, income effect, and some application of the consumer theory also. So you can just write down the content for semester 1. If you want to write it, just write first unit is Introduction to Economic Trade-off. Introduction to Economic Trade-off, chapter number 1, 2 and 3 from ManQ. So first unit is Introduction to Economic Trade-off, unit number 1. Unit number 2, how market works, chapter number 4, 5, 6, 7 and 9. 5 chapters here. Unit number 2, how market operates, how market works. So main content you can say, more weightage you can say for the unit number 2. Then unit number 3 is a role of the government, chapter number 8, 10 and 11, role of the government. And fourth unit is individual decision and interaction, in that individual decision interaction chapter 1 and 2 only up to 2.5 you have to cover from Dikshit, mainly covering the game theory part, highlighting the interdependency, what is the meaning of Nash-Eklund and what is the meaning of dominant study, only limited part because detail you will be studying in semester 4 and chapter number 21 from NQ. Okay, so these are the 4 units. So what we will be doing is basically we will focus initially on unit number 2 and 3, which is the bulk of your syllabus, unit number 2 and unit number 3. So you can start with unit number 2 and 3, but before that just see the end semester or weightage of this section. Unit 1 15 marks, unit 2 30, unit 3 25 and unit number 4 20. So if you club unit number 2 and 3, if you combine this unit number 2 and 3, this is 55 marks, and 15 marks is unit number 1 and 20 is unit number 2. So that makes 90. So initial focus will be on unit number 2 and 3, and the paper pattern is that there will be 7 questions in total. You have to attempt any 5. ठीक है, कोई सेक्शन नहीं है, 7 क्वेश्चन इन टोटल गिवन है, यू हैव टू अटेम्प्ट एनी 5. सो इफ यू हैव टू अटेम्प्ट एनी 5 दैट इज 18 into 5, 18 मार्क्स का एक क्वेश्चन होगा, देयर विल बी वेरियस सब पार्ट ऑफ इट, सो दैट विल बी द 90 मार्क्स पेपर. क्लियर? तो ये डिवीजन एक्चुअल में मार्क्स की जगह इन टर्म्स ऑफ आई विल से ये डिवीजन इनफैक्ट जब यहाँ लिखा जा रहा है तो नेचुरली ये 90 मार्क्स का कंपोजिशन हो गया. बट पेपर अगर आप देखते हो तो पेपर इन पेपर यू विल बी हैविंग यू गेट बेसिकली 7 क्वेश्चन, यू आर अटेम्प्टिंग 5, तो 18 into 5 वो 90 मार्क्स का पेपर आप अटेम्प्ट कर रहे हैं, बट क्वेश्चन पेपर इनफैक्ट 7 into 18 एंड 126 का पेपर बना हुआ है. तो ब्रेकअप इनफैक्ट मुझे 126 का होना चाहिए. तो इन टर्म्स ऑफ परसेंटेज यू कैन से इफ इट इज देन इट इज ओके. सो just get a clarity. I think the weightage is basically in terms of the percentage, not necessarily in terms of the marks. That means you are getting more weightage from unit number 2 and unit number 3. So it is possible in the examination that you can attempt, I think 3/4 of your paper, 3/4 of the paper only by unit number 2 and 3. That is 70-75% of the paper you can attempt only from unit number 2 and 3. Clear? So again I repeat, unit 1 2 3 4, and now we are starting with unit number 2 and 3 together. So for unit number 2 it is 4 5 6 7 and 9, and unit number 3 8 10 or 11. So in terms of continuity you can say chapter 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11. ठीक है, 5 and 3 8 chapters का ये content है unit number 2 and 3. But the class is not that we are studying chapter number 4 and then I will go for chapter number 5, then I will go for chapter number 6. It is basically class for unit number 2 and 3. So once I will say that okay, now unit number 2 and 3 is over, then all content will be over. That means in this first lecture itself we will be studying some content of chapter number 4 also, some content of chapter number 6 also, some content of chapter number 8 also. ठीक है, तो but you will not feel any disconnect. वो concept की continuity है. So just follow that continuity of the concept. So just make the heading unit number 2 and unit number 3 we are starting, and for unit 2 and 3 the reference chapters are written here. Clear? Now begin with first the basic part. We will start first of all with the concept of elasticity of demand. We start with the concept of elasticity of demand. ठीक है, क्वेश्चन पेपर साथ में अवेलेबल है. यू कैन, आई विल बी जस्ट रेफरिंग टू दिस क्वेश्चन सो दैट यू विल गेट एन आइडिया व्हाट इज द एंड सेमेस्टर एग्जाम. सो पेपर पैटर्न है दैट यू गेट you have to attempt 5 question in 3 hours, total marks 19. Attempt any 5 question in section होता है, and all questions carry equal marks, but any 5 out of 7 है, so you get in every question you get basically various sub parts, and majority of the content is also going to be at the numerical orientation. That means you will be getting plenty of numerical based question also. So approach is not that only theoretical question is there in micro, it is theoretical, applied and numerical. Theoretical, applied and numerical. So if you combine that application and numerical part, it will constitute, I will say, more than 2/3 of the paper. Clear? So in every question you will find that calculation based question होंगे वहाँ पे. Like first question itself के अंदर ये calculation based question है 1C, then this is calculation based question, next is calculation based question. So I will come to that part. Now start first with the concept of elasticity of demand. See, whenever you use this term elasticity, elasticity in fact refers to a responsiveness. So if I say elasticity of demand, that means it measures responsiveness of demand. Elasticity of demand is a responsiveness of demand due to, now demand can respond due to change in price, demand can respond due to change in income, demand can respond due to change in price of related good, demand can respond due to change in taste and preference, demand can respond due to any other factor also. So if I write the demand function, that quantity demanded of good X is a function of, it is a function of price of that good, income of consumer, income को हमसे denote किया, price of a related commodity, and there could be other factor also. So this is said to be a demand function. Demand is a function of price, income and price of the related commodity. For elasticity point of view, these three are important. So I have written only three. So if there is change in price, keeping other factor constant. So if I keep income constant and price of related or constant, then as price will change, demand will respond. But question is by how much it will respond. That degree of responsiveness will be calculated by elasticity of demand, and that will be called as the price elasticity of demand. So I repeat, price elasticity demand measures what? Degree of responsiveness in quantity demanded due to change in price of that commodity, keeping all other factors constant. Clear? I repeat, it measures degree of responsiveness in quantity demanded due to change in price of that commodity, keeping all other factors constant. So when price of a commodity changes, you get price elasticity of demand. That is first concept. So we will be starting with price elasticity demand first. Second, when income will change, then also there will be response in quantity demanded. But when you change income, in that case you keep these two prices constant. ठीक है, दो फैक्टर एक साथ वेरिएबल नहीं करने. When you are changing income, you keep these two prices constant. So how much is the response in demand due to change in income? That can be measured by income elasticity. So what does income elasticity measures? Responsiveness in quantity demanded due to change in income of consumer, keeping all other factors constant. And third factor is price of the related commodity. That means you are calculating change in demand for X due to change in price of Y, change in demand for Pepsi due to change in price of Coke. In that case, it will be called as cross price elasticity, or simply you can call it cross elasticity. So what does cross elasticity measures? Response in quantity demanded of good X due to change in price of good Y, keeping all other factors same. So primarily we are dealing with three types of elasticity. One is price elasticity demand, second is income elasticity demand, third is cross price elasticity demand. And similar concept will be followed in the supply part also. That price elasticity supply we have to calculate. But first we start with the concept of price elasticity. ठीक है, everything you will be getting also in the notes category. That means definition of price elasticity, income elasticity, overall the concept of elasticity demand. So we are basically focusing on the description part of it and the numerical part of it. So if you want to write a simple definition for the elasticity demand, then you can write only one line, that it is a numerical measure of degree of responsiveness in quantity demanded due to change in either price of commodity or income of consumer or price of related commodity. Now given that, since we have to explain all three, focus on this price elasticity demand. So next you write price elasticity demand. Price elasticity of demand may be sometimes written as a own price elasticity, because एक क्रॉस प्राइस elasticity है और एक ओन प्राइस elasticity है. जिस गुड का डिमांड चेंज हो रहा है उसी कमोडिटी का प्राइस चेंज हो रहा है. So what is the price elasticity demand? You can write the definition for price elasticity demand now. It is a numerical measure of degree of responsiveness in quantity demanded due to change in price of that commodity, keeping all other factors constant. Clear? I repeat. It is a numerical measure of degree of responsiveness in quantity demanded due to change in price of that commodity, keeping all other factors constant. Now question is how to calculate it. For elasticity I am writing E. So it measures percentage change, delta for change, percentage change in quantity demanded upon percentage change in price, percentage change in price. So if price changes by 10% and quantity changes by 20%, then you can say elasticity demand is 2. So now question is how to calculate the percentage change in quantity demanded. It is simple, change in quantity divided by quantity, percentage के लिए 100 से मल्टीप्लाई कर दिया. Similarly change in price divided by price into 100. These 200 will cancel out. So what is left is delta Q by delta P into P by Q. Delta Q by delta P into P by Q. ठीक है, ऐसे इसी फॉर्मेट में लिखेंगे, it will be better. So elasticity demand is equal to this, delta Q by delta P into P by Q. Mathematically I will write it as dQ by dP into P by Q. That means you are differentiating demand function with respect to price, keeping all other factors constant. Delta Q by delta P measures what? Change in demand due to change in price. So mathematically it is dQ by dP. Second thing what is important is that since price and demand are inversely related, demand का भी negatively slope. So as price and demand are inversely related, it means if change in price is positive, then change in quantity will be negative, or the other way around. That means out of these two numbers, delta Q and delta P, one will be negative. But if any number is negative, then the entire expression becomes negative. मतलब elasticity हमेशा calculate करेंगे तो negative आएगा. But we can prove that elasticity is always positive. It always lies between 0 to infinity. So to make elasticity positive, you add minus sign in the formula itself. If you do not add a minus sign, it will come out to be negative. तो कभी कभी गिवन होता है पेपर के अंदर -3 लिखा हुआ है, बट इसका मतलब है वहाँ फॉर्मूले में माइनस साइन यूज़ नहीं किया गया. अगर माइनस साइन अगर हम यूज़ करेंगे तो इलास्टिसिटी ऑफ डिमांड की वैल्यू हमेशा पॉजिटिव आएगी. सो इलास्टिसिटी इज माइनस डेल्टा क्यू बाई डेल्टा पी इंटू पी बाई क्यू. नाउ क्वेश्चन इज हाउ इट कैन बी अप्लाइड और यूज्ड. सिंपल application of it. Suppose just consider any example. If I write quantity demanded is equal to 100 minus 5p, and then I say find elasticity of demand at price equal to 4. आपके पास डिमांड का इक्वेशन गिवन है और इलास्टिसिटी डिमांड की वैल्यू बतानी है व्हेन प्राइस इज 4. तो बेसिक क्वेश्चन है ये. इलास्टिसिटी डिमांड कैलकुलेट करने के लिए आई नो दिस फॉर्मूला. सो इन ऑर्डर टू यूज इट वी मस्ट नो द प्राइस. सो प्राइस इज गिवन टू यू 4, एंड इन प्लेस ऑफ दिस प्राइस इफ यू राइट 4, then you get quantity also. That means 5 into 4 20, 100 minus 20 80. So you know the price and you know the quantity, you need to only calculate what? Delta Q by delta P, which is nothing but differentiation of the function. So dQ by dP करना पहले. So So if you differentiate this function with respect to price, constant number 100 हो गया, इसका derivative 0 minus 5p. So derivative is only minus 5, and therefore in the elasticity you just write minus sign, delta q by delta p into p by q. So in place of delta q by delta p you write minus 5, price is given as 4, and when price is 4 then quantity will come out to be 80. So this number is 20 upon 80, which is 1 by 4 or 0.25. ठीक है, शॉर्ट कैलकुलेशन, मतलब इफ यू गेट हार्डली 1 or 2 मार्क्स का वेटेज होगा. तो डिमांड फंक्शन अगर गिवन है तो वी मस्ट नो हाउ टू कैलकुलेट इलास्टिसिटी या डिमांड. देयर आर डिफरेंट मेथड्स टू कैलकुलेट इलास्टिसिटी डिमांड, विल कम टू इट लेटर ऑन, बट फर्स्ट रिमेंबर दैट this is one way to calculate elasticity demand if a function is given to you. Clear? Now second thing what is important is that when you write this function elasticity as a delta q upon delta p into p by q, if you are solving any numerical question don't forget to add the minus sign, otherwise you can write it. So if I write delta q by delta p into p by q, now question is when you draw the demand curve, you write price on the vertical axis, quantity on the horizontal axis. So if demand function is such, then what is slope of that demand curve? Slope of demand curve. So what is slope of that line? Slope of that line is geometrically you can say perpendicular by base, that is p by q, or डेल्टा पी बाय डेल्टा क्यू. स्लोप एक्चुअल में मैथमेटिकली डी वाई बाई डी एक्स है, बट डी वाई बाई डी एक्स का मतलब वर्टिकल एक्सेस का चेंज अपॉन हॉरिजॉन्टल एक्सेस का चेंज. तो स्लोप ऑफ डिमांड कर्व इज इन फैक्ट डेल्टा पी बाय डेल्टा क्यू, बट इन द फॉर्मूला व्हाट यू राइट डेल्टा क्यू बाय डेल्टा पी, दैट इज जस्ट इनवर्स ऑफ द स्लोप. सो यू कैन राइट इलास्टिसिटी फॉर्मूला एज 1 अपॉन स्लोप ऑफ डिमांड कर्व इनटू पी बाय क्यू. Clear? So elasticity equation could be written in this form, 1 upon slope into p by q. Now it means elasticity slope के ऊपर डिपेंड करता है और उसका इनवर्स रिलेशन है स्लोप से. elasticity depend upon price, elasticity depend upon the quantity. So if I have drawn a straight line demand curve, तो straight line demand curve straight line है, that means slope at every point is same, but elasticity will not be same because elasticity is not only slope. Elasticity is 1 by slope into p by q. So just focus on this diagram now. If you want to calculate elasticity at this point, then at that point we know that price is 0. So in place of price if you write 0, then entire number will be 0. So elasticity at this corner point is going to be 0 because price is 0. And as you move up, price increases and quantity demanded decreases. So at this point, corner point, quantity demanded is 0. So in place of quantity if you write 0, then any number divided by 0 will become infinite. So at this point elasticity is infinite, which means elasticity varies between 0 to infinity. Elasticity varies between 0 to infinity. But if any number is between 0 to infinity, it means it is always positive. Elasticity always positive. Clear? So that explains why you have to add minus sign in the formula. ठीक है? Second thing is that if I say that elasticity depend upon price and quantity, वो यहाँ diagram से clear हो गया. But elasticity also depend upon the slope, and it varies inversely with the slope. That is, greater is the slope, less elasticity. Less slope, greater will be the elasticity. Less slope, more elasticity. More slope, lower elasticity. So if I give you two extreme case, one where it is vertical line and the other where it is a horizontal line. These are the two demand curve. So for a vertical line, what is slope and how much is elasticity? And for horizontal line, what is slope and what is elasticity? अगर line horizontal है, then slope is 0. So when slope is 0, elasticity will be infinite. When line is vertical, slope is infinite, elasticity will be 0. स्लोप ज्योमेट्रिकली tan थीटा भी है, तो यहाँ पे tan 90 आ जाएगा. तो स्लोप इज एक्चुअली दैट मीन्स दिस एंगल पे वो लाइन टिल्टेड है, दैट इज बेसिकली स्लोप. So if that line gets steeper, slope will increase. If line gets flatter, slope will decrease. So two extreme cases, it can be horizontal, it can be vertical. So for the vertical, elasticity is 0 because slope is infinite. For horizontal, slope is 0, therefore elasticity is infinite. So just keep these basic information in mind. We'll continue with this. So I have just given you the introduction about what do you mean by the term elasticity of demand. What is the meaning of the term? So again I repeat, elasticity of demand measures response of quantity demanded due to change in price keeping all other factors constant. Clear? It can be of three different forms like price elasticity, income elasticity and cross elasticity. Right now we are discussing about the price elasticity demand, and elasticity demand is equal to 1 upon slope into P by Q. That means it depend upon price, it depend upon quantity, it depend upon slope. Slope के साथ elasticity का inverse relation है. So although I have not discussed full detail of the term price elasticity demand, but now we can move to the concept of application of this term elasticity demand. So write the heading application of elasticity demand. Application of the term elasticity demand. So there are many applications. One important application is in the form of incidence of tax. Incidence of tax. The word incidence means burden. So right now we are discussing burden of tax. That means if tax is imposed either on buyer or seller, then the burden of that tax will be shared by buyer and seller both. And in which condition complete burden will be on buyer, in which condition complete burden will be on seller, all these things will be discussing in this heading. So incidence of tax, again I repeat, refers to the burden of tax. And when we talk about the taxation, which type of tax we are actually referring to here, it is a quantity tax, which could be called as a specific tax, may be written as unit tax. Question में कुछ भी term use हो सकता है. Like for example, if I say that tax rate is 10 rupees per unit, I am not saying 10%, it is 10 rupees. If it will be 10% तो price 100 होगा तो 10 हो जाएगा, 200 होगा तो 20 हो जाएगा. But it is not percentage. Percentage होता है तो कहते हैं ad valorem tax. This is quantity tax that you are studying in semester 1. So be careful about that. Quantity tax is tax per unit. So if a tax 10 per unit is imposed, then what will be the impact? So the effect of tax can be compared only when we compare two situations. One, without tax, what happens? Second, what after tax, what happens? So first I will compare the without tax position. So what is the without tax position? Without tax position, prices are determined by the market forces. Remember, we are studying how market works. So market works through market forces. So if your demand and supply function is given to you, you can calculate the price. So if we have a price, one price I will have without any tax. Second price I will calculate after the tax. Without any tax, the price paid by the buyer, the price received by the seller, both will be same. But after tax, there will be a gap. I will explain that. So this is your before tax position. This is your before tax position. ये टैक्स से पहले का पोजीशन. टैक्स के बाद का पोजीशन क्या होगा वो एक्सप्लेन करना है. Just see this. I will follow this with a numerical example also. So without any tax for any given function demand and supply, you can calculate the price. So there will be a price without any tax. Now if tax is imposed, suppose I said tax is 10 rupees on per unit. Now if a tax of 10 rupees per unit will be imposed, then what will happen that if you have drawn any supply curve like this, जो सप्लाई कर्व यहाँ बना रखा है, सप्लाई कर्व एक्चुअली शोज how much quantity firm will be willing to sell at different prices. So if I mark a point here and write 1, and corresponding to that 1 if I write 5, it actually means that seller is willing to sell 1 unit at a price of 5. He is willing to sell 1 unit at a price of 5. So if seller was ready to sell 1 unit at a price of 5 without any tax. Now if seller has to pay a tax of 10 per unit, that means on that unit seller has to pay a tax of 10 rupees also. So now seller will be willing to sell the same unit at a price of 15, because 10 rupees you have to pay tax to the government also. So now new supply curve must be passing through that point 15. New supply curve must be passing through that point 16. So this will be supply curve after tax, which means when tax will be imposed, then this supply curve will simply shift up by the size of tax. That means the gap at every quantity will be 10, because on every quantity there is a tax of 10. So on every quantity there will be a tax of 10 rupees. So simply supply curve को 10 rupees से shift कर देना. Supply curve will simply shift by 10 or whatever be the size of the tax. It could be 5, 10, 20. So if you apply that concept here, so if I shift the supply curve by the size of tax, so this is my supply curve after tax. New intersection will be this. This will be the price, the new market price, and remember new market price will be paid by the buyer. So I will say this is the price paid by the buyer. But buyer ने जो price pay कर रखा है उसमें tax included है. Whenever you buy a product, you pay the price inclusive of the tax. And if I ask how much is that tax, then tax is the vertical gap between these two supply curve. The vertical tax between these two supply curve is actually this gap. So now answer one thing. If I ask what is price without tax, you will say it is P, this number. And if I ask what is the size of tax, then you will say that size of tax is this complete distance, 10 rupees. But if I ask how much is the increase in price due to tax, increase in price due to tax. So increase in price due to tax is only this gap, only this. Because tax से पहले भी price ये था, tax के बाद का price ये हो गया, तो increase in price is less than the size of tax. Tax size is more, increase in price is less. So if tax size is let us say 10, but price increases only by 4, then burden on buyer will be only 4. Because price goes up only by 4 rupees, so burden on buyer will be only of 4 rupees. So this increase in price will be the burden on buyer. But buyer ने जो price pay कर रखा है उसमें tax का size minus करना है, because tax will go to the government. After paying the tax to the government, seller will receive a lower price. And just remember the price paid by the buyer and the price received by the seller. इसे मैंने क्यों में लिखा है tax wedge, wedge means gap, and that gap is equal to tax size. That gap is equal to tax size. This gap will be equal to tax size. Clear? Now question is obviously we'll calculate it, but this is a quantity without tax, this is quantity after the tax. We need to calculate all those numbers for any numerical value. Question is that naturally burden is on buyer and seller both, because when tax was 10 rupees, price goes up only by 4 rupees. It may go increase only by 6 rupees, but वो 5 से बढ़ेगा, 6 से बढ़ेगा, 4 से बढ़ेगा, वो depend किस पे करता है? That depend upon elasticity demand. That is why we are treating this topic as an application of elasticity demand. That means there will be burden on buyer as well as burden on seller. But that burden on buyer and seller will depend upon elasticity demand and elasticity supply. Just remember this formula, that buyer's burden upon seller's burden. Buyer's burden upon seller's burden is equal to elasticity of supply by elasticity of demand. Just learn this equation. Buyer's burden upon seller's burden is equal to elasticity of supply by elasticity of demand. That means buyer and seller will share the burden in the ratio of elasticity of supply and elasticity of demand. अब इससे equation से in fact 4 relations follow. First, burden on buyer varies directly with elasticity of supply. Burden on seller varies directly with elasticity demand. Burden on buyer varies inversely with elasticity demand. Burden on seller varies inversely with elasticity of supply. I repeat, greater will be the burden, greater will be the elasticity of supply, greater will be the burden on buyer. Greater will be elasticity demand, greater will be the burden on seller. So if elasticity or demand is greater, if elasticity demand is greater, more burden on seller. If elasticity demand is less, less burden on seller. If elasticity demand is zero, then zero burden on seller. Zero burden on seller means complete burden will be on buyer. So if the question says in which condition there will be complete burden on buyer, your answer is when elasticity or demand is equal to 0. Similarly, greater will be elasticity of supply, more burden on buyer, less elasticity of supply, less burden on buyer, zero elasticity of supply, zero burden on buyer. So when there will be no burden on buyer, when elasticity of supply will be 0. And just remember, you know that if elasticity of demand is 0 or infinite, then line will be either vertical or horizontal. But we have not drawn vertical or horizontal here. यहाँ पे अभी हमने vertical horizontal नहीं लिया. If you take vertical or horizontal, then it will be a complete burden on buyer or complete burden on seller. Otherwise, the burden will be on buyer and seller both. Clear? So now question is how to. Now there are two parts of it. One will be the theoretical part of it, description in terms of the theory, how to explain it. Other part is in terms of the numerical, how to calculate it. So I will start first of all with the numerical so that it becomes easier for you to understand the theory behind it then, because you will have the numerical numbers to support it. Clear? So we have to calculate these numbers here. So I will start first with a question given in the reading के बैक में mainly if I can recall correctly, it is chapter number 8 के बैक में. I said I am not doing chapter 4, 5, 6, 7 individually. It is basically a combination. So I started with demand and supply, was chapter number 4, 5. Then elasticity demand, now I am doing the application part of it from chapter number 8. So just write a numerical example. If a price is given as a quantity के term में it will be if P is equal to Q is equal to 300 minus P and Q is equal to 2P. This is quantity demanded, this is quantity supplied. So calculate price before tax. So if you have to calculate it before tax, then first you will plot it. So can you plot the demand equation? Easy है. If price is 0, then quantity will be 300. If price is 0, then quantity is 300. यहाँ पे मार्क करेंगे 300 का पॉइंट. And if quantity is 0, then what is price? If quantity is 0, then 300 minus 300. 300 और 300 के पॉइंट को कनेक्ट कर लेना है स्ट्रेट लाइन से. एक बार P की वैल्यू 0 करो, Q आ जाएगा, Q की वैल्यू 0 करो, P आ जाएगा. दोनों पॉइंट मार्क करके फिर स्ट्रेट लाइन से कनेक्ट कर देंगे. सप्लाई कर्व में व्हेन प्राइस इज 0, देन क्वांटिटी इज आल्सो 0. So you can start from the origin. Supply curve, demand curve intersection determine the market price. So what is the market price? Quantity demanded equal to quantity supplied. 300 minus P is equal to 2P. Therefore 3P is equal to 300. Price will be equal to 100. So this price is 100. And how much is the quantity? You can calculate that quantity from any equation. P की जगह यहाँ पे 100 लिखना है या यहाँ 100 लिखना है. दोनों ही केस में quantity will come out to be 200. ठीक है. This is your price and quantity without any tax. Now question is what will happen after tax? So let's see the calculation after tax. See, tax can be imposed either on the buyer or it can be imposed on the seller. ठीक है. I will elaborate the demand function को भी आप चेंज कर सकते हो, सप्लाई फंक्शन को भी चेंज कर सकते हैं. जस्ट रिमेंबर वन थिंग, व्हेन टैक्स इज इम्पोज्ड देन बायर विल पे अ हायर प्राइस एंड सेलर विल रिसीव अ लोअर प्राइस. सो इफ यू आर मॉडिफाइंग द डिमांड फंक्शन, दैट मीन्स यू राइट न्यू डिमांड function. So it will be written as quantity demanded equal to 300 minus P. ये already given है. And in that example, just consider that government imposes a tax size, and tax size is equal to T per unit. अब T की वैल्यू कुछ भी हो सकती है, 10, 5, 20 एनी नंबर. ठीक है. इन दैट क्वेश्चन चैप्टर नंबर 8 के बैक में गिवन होगा, वो टैक्स साइज इज गिवन एज T per unit. So what I will do, since I am modifying the demand equation and bar will pay a higher price, so it will be 300 minus P plus T. कोई भी कोएफिशिएंट अगर कुछ गिवन होगा तो उसको ब्रैकेट से बाहर रखिएगा. It will be P plus T. That means for example suppose it is written 300 minus 2P, तो you will write 300 minus 2 and then in bracket P plus T. और अगर आप सप्लाई कर्व चेंज कर रहे हो तो QS इक्वल टू 2 एंड विद इन ब्रैकेट P माइनस T. दोनों से आंसर एक ही आएगा. मैं डिमांड फंक्शन चेंज कर रहा हूँ, आप इसको क्रॉस चेक कर लीजिएगा बाय चेंजिंग द सप्लाई इक्वेशन, बट डोंट चेंज बोथ. ठीक है, कोई एक चेंज करना है, बिकॉज टैक्स विल बी इम्पोज आइदर ऑन द बायर और ऑन द सेलर. So if you modify the demand function, then just write the new market equilibrium. Calculate the new market equilibrium. Quantity demanded equal to quantity supplied. 300 minus P plus T is equal to 2P. ठीक है, ये डिमांड फंक्शन चेंज हो गया, उसको आप सप्लाई से इक्वेट कर देंगे. सो यू राइट 300 माइनस P minus T is equal to 2P. So that will be 3P is equal to 300 minus T and price will be equal to 100 minus T by 3. 100 minus T by 3. अब क्वेश्चन ये बनता है कि जो प्राइस हमने यहाँ कैलकुलेट किया है, ये प्राइस बायर का है या सेलर का है, बिकॉज प्राइस दोनों के अब डिफरेंट होंगे टैक्स के बाद. इफ टैक्स ऑफ T वाज इम्पोज, ये टैक्स ऑफ T वाज इम्पोज, दैट मीन्स यू विल क्रिएट अ गैप हियर ऑफ T. Because supply curve has actually shifted by T. Supply curve has actually shifted by T. It is the new supply curve passing through this point. This was the line I am referring to as T. ठीक है, previous diagram में देखिए. Supply curve shift हो जाएगा by the size of tax. So it shifted by the size of tax. So even if you are not drawing that line, that means say if I just ignore that line and just mark this gap, still the argument will remain same. So now we have to calculate this price, and this price क्वेश्चन में ये पूछ रहा था कि जो प्राइस कैलकुलेट कर रखा है ये कौन सी वैल्यू आ रही है. टैक्स से पहले 100 है और ये नंबर जो आ रखा है वो 100 माइनस T by 3 है. तो 100 माइनस T by 3, दैट लोअर नंबर इज फॉर द सेलर. सो दिस इज द प्राइस फॉर सेलर, 100 माइनस T by 3. So what will be the price for the buyer? If this is the price for the seller, then what is the price for the buyer? सेलर के प्राइस में टैक्स के साइज को क्या करना है, ऐड कर देना है. इन दोनों का जो गैप आएगा वो टैक्स साइज है. तो प्राइस फॉर सेलर प्लस T कर दीजिएगा, विच मीन्स 100 माइनस T by 3 प्लस T. सो दिस विल बिकम 100 प्लस 2T by 3. 100 प्लस 2T by 3. तो प्राइस फॉर बायर इज 100 प्लस 2T by 3. क्लियर है. And last part is how much is the quantity. Before tax it was 200. What is after tax? You can calculate that quantity either from the demand function or from the supply function. अगर डिमांड फंक्शन ले रहे हैं तो बी श्योर कि आपने नया डिमांड फंक्शन यूज़ कर रखा है, और अगर सप्लाई फंक्शन है तो वो चेंज नहीं हुआ था. यू कैन यूज दिस. सो यू कैन कैलकुलेट द क्वांटिटी बाय राइटिंग 2P, बट विच प्राइस यू विल राइट हियर, बिकॉज अब ये दो प्राइस है, एक सेलर का और एक बायर का है. सिंस यू आर यूजिंग दिस सप्लाई कर्व, सो यूज प्राइस रिसीव्ड बाय सेलर. सो यू राइट 2 and place of price you write 100 minus T by 3. So this value will be 200 minus 2T by 3. यहाँ जो वैल्यू आ रही है वही आ जाएगी, 200 minus 2T by 3. ठीक है. So this above area will be the part of buyer burden, lower area will be the part of seller burden. अब ये कैलकुलेट करने के लिए यूजुअली इन एवरी ईयर पेपर यू गेट वन क्वेश्चन, आइदर 8 marks, 6 marks, समटाइम्स 10 marks. देयर विल बी अदर सब पार्ट ऑफ इट ऑल्सो, बट रेगुलरली ये क्वेश्चन है. बट इफ यू जस्ट अंडरस्टैंड दिस स्टेप, यू कैन सॉल्व वन क्वेश्चन. तो रीडिंग के बैक में वन ऑफ क्वेश्चन इस तरीके के गिवन है एंड यू आर एक्सपेक्टेड टू सॉल्व सम अदर क्वेश्चंस. सो क्लियर है यहाँ तक का पॉइंट. डिमांड फंक्शन सप्लाई फंक्शन गिवन है, वो इक्वेट करके पहले आप विदाउट टैक्स प्राइस क्वांटिटी निकाल लो. देन आफ्टर टैक्स चेंज द डिमांड फंक्शन. डिमांड फंक्शन में इन प्लेस ऑफ प्राइस जस्ट ऐड द टैक्स साइज, and if you are changing the supply curve, just subtract that tax size from the supply function, but don't change both, and then equate that new demand function with the supply. If you solve one more question, I think things will become more clear. One question solved from the past year, ये last year का question है. ठीक है, these questions will be finding in your on your portal. I'll try to filter it and have a topic wise question also separately, but just solve one question here. डिमांड और सप्लाई फंक्शन गिवन है उसमें, और टैक्स का साइज गिवन है, और टैक्स साइज के बेसिस पे यू हैव टू कैलकुलेट प्राइस फॉर द बायर, प्राइस फॉर द सेलर. दिस क्वेश्चन नंबर दिस. ठीक है, इस क्वेश्चन पे आई विल जस्ट राइट इट सेपरेटली बट वेरी सिमिलर टू व्हाट यू हैव डन. दैट इट वाज रिटन एज क्वांटिटी डिमांडेड 200 माइनस पी, जैसे अभी यहाँ लिख रहे थे 300 माइनस पी. क्वांटिटी सप्लाइड आपने लिख रखा था 2p, पेपर के अंदर वहाँ 3p लिखा हुआ है. सो द सपोज द मार्केट फॉर सोप इज डिस्क्राइब्ड बाय द फॉलोइंग डिमांड एंड सप्लाई फंक्शन. सो डिमांड एंड सप्लाई फंक्शन इज गिवन, जस्ट कॉपी दिस सप्लाई इक्वेशन एंड डिमांड फंक्शन. सो सप्लाई फंक्शन q इज इक्वल टू 3p एंड डिमांड फंक्शन q इज इक्वल टू 200 माइनस p, ये गिवन है. क्वेश्चन में पूछा गया कैलकुलेट द प्राइस and quantity of soap and suppose that tax of 40 is imposed on seller. ध्यान दीजिएगा, suppose a tax of 40 is imposed on seller. Solve for the new equivalent price, what happened to the price received by seller, price paid by the buyer and quantity sold, and calculate the deadweight loss due to tax also. So we'll cover that deadweight loss also subsequently, but you can solve up to this है. ये 8 मार्क्स का क्वेश्चन है, तो 6 मार्क्स का वेटेज आपका वो वहाँ तक का पार्ट आप सॉल्व कर सकते हो. टैक्स से पहले का प्राइस बताना, टैक्स के बाद का प्राइस बताना, टैक्स से पहले की क्वांटिटी निकालनी है, टैक्स के बाद की क्वांटिटी निकालनी है. ठीक है, क्वांटिटी डिमांडेड 200 माइनस पी है एंड क्वांटिटी सप्लाइड 3p है. क्वांटिटी सप्लाइड 3p and quantity demanded was 200 minus p and tax size was 40 per unit on seller. ठीक है, अब देखिए how to solve it. First I will calculate before tax. So before tax is the most easy part. Just equate quantity demanded with the quantity supplied. 200 minus p is equal to 3p. Therefore 4p will be equal to 200 and price will be equal to 50. And price equal to 50, then what is the quantity? In place of price 50 you write down here, or this you get a quantity of 150. So this is price and quantity without any tax. ये हो गया. Now we have to calculate what happens after tax. Easy step होता है, बस थोड़ा presentation आपको neat और clean रखना वहाँ पे. After tax, since question say that it is tax imposed on seller, so write down the new supply equation. If question is silent you can use any one. बट अगर आप गलती से डिमांड को ही मॉडिफाई करोगे आंसर एक ही आएगा. ये नहीं कि आंसर हमारा डिफरेंट होता है, आंसर एक ही होना है. बट अगर क्वेश्चन में इफ इट इज मेंशन दैट इज ऑन सेलर, प्रेफरेबली बेटर टू चेंज द सप्लाई इक्वेशन. सो न्यू सप्लाई फंक्शन, न्यू सप्लाई फंक्शन विल बी q इज इक्वल टू 3 एंड आई रिपीट p माइनस सप्लाई फंक्शन में माइनस करोगे. Seller receive a lower price, buyer pay a higher price. So P minus 40. Now equate what is the new market equivalent? quantity demanded equal to quantity supplied, quantity demanded 200 minus P equal to 3 into P minus 40, ये करना, ठीक है. क्वांटिटी डिमांडेड इसको इक्वेट कर देंगे क्वांटिटी सप्लाइड से एंड सॉल्व फॉर P. So write 200 minus P is equal to 3P minus 120. So this will become 4P is equal to 4P will be equal to what, 80. ठीक है. P की वैल्यू इधर राइट साइड कर दी है, वो 120 लेफ्ट साइड कर देंगे. सो 120 लेफ्ट साइड कर रखा है, इट विल बी 320. It will be 320. So price is coming out to be now 80. Price will be 80. Now if earlier price was 50 and this is coming out to be 80, so higher price must be the price for the buyer. So buyer is paying 80. Out of that 80, 40 is tax. So 80 minus 40, 40 rupees will be the price for the seller. So this is price for the buyer. And what is price for the seller? Price for the seller will be equal to price paid by the buyer minus tax. So it will be 80 minus 40, that will be 40. ठीक है. अब चाहो तो आप इसे प्लॉट करके मार्क कर देंगे, दैट विल बी अ बेटर वे टू प्रेजेंट इट. सो हाउ टू प्लॉट इट ग्राफिकली? डिमांड फंक्शन वाज Q equal to 200 minus P. So you can just write 200 and 200 intercept, 200 and 200. And supply function was given as 3P. So if price is 0, quantity is 0 starting from origin. इक्वेट करके पहले प्राइस लिख देंगे जो विदाउट टैक्स प्राइस आया 50 एंड 150. सो राइट 50 एंड 150. देन देयर इज अ टैक्स ऑफ 40 imposed. So tax of 40 will shift the supply curve. This is supply after tax. This gap is of 40. After that you calculated a price of 80. So that was the price paid by the buyer. ये price आपने यहाँ calculate कर रखा है 80 और seller के लिए price 40. This is the price for seller which is 40. Only one thing you have to calculate and this is quantity. So what will be the quantity? Quantity you can calculate again from supply curve or the demand curve. So if I use that curve which has not changed, because उसमें mistake के chance कम होते हैं, दोनों में आंसर एक ही आना है. Quantity is 200 minus P. So I will write 200 minus P. And what is price for the buyer? Because you are using the demand equation. So buyer is paying 80. 200 minus 80, that will be 120. This will be 120. ठीक है. तो ये फर्स्ट पार्ट आपका यहाँ तक जो कर रहे हैं, ये 6 मार्क्स का जो कंटेंट है वो बेसिकली ये जैसे न्यूमेरिकल क्वेश्चन है. इफ़ यू आर नॉट कमिटिंग एनी कैलकुलेशन मिस्टेक तो ये इजी क्वेश्चन है. यू विल बी गेटिंग प्लेंटी ऑफ इट इन द पास्ट ईयर ऑल्सो फ्रॉम आवर साइड. तो इनफ प्रैक्टिस हो जाएगी. और देयर विल बी अ वेरियस सब पार्ट ऑफ इट ऑल्सो, लाइक क्वेश्चन इटसेल्फ वाज सेइंग व्हाट इज द डेड वेट लॉस. ऑल्दो यू डू नॉट नो द term and the meaning of it, but I will just say dead weight loss is actually this area, this triangle I am referring to. Why it is called dead weight loss you will come to know in the next few lectures, but you can calculate it. Dead weight loss, if I say this is the area of dead weight loss, so you have all the numbers. So if you want to calculate that dead weight loss for this question, you have to calculate only that area of this triangle. So area of this triangle is half into base, and what is base? Base is this tax size. So tax size is a 40. And what is height? Height is this. So this gap is 30. So that will be 20 into 30. 600 is dead weight loss. 8 नंबर का जो क्वेश्चन है वो यहाँ कंप्लीट हो गया. So you can solve few questions from past year, then start first of all with some question of the 10 रीडिंग के बैक में जो क्वेश्चन है वो करने. अलग अलग एडिशन के भी क्वेश्चन अवेलेबल हैं जो आपको सेपरेट प्रॉब्लम सेट के अंदर प्रोवाइड कर दिए जाएंगे. दैट मीन्स यू विल हैव इनफ नंबर ऑफ क्वेश्चन टू डू इट, बट आई विल जस्ट शोइंग हाउ यू कैन सॉल्व दिस टाइप ऑफ क्वेश्चन. ठीक है. जो क्वेश्चन पेपर में पूछा गया वो ईजी है, मतलब कोई बहुत ज़्यादा डिफिकल्टी नहीं है. इफ़ यू जस्ट नो द स्टेप हाउ टू सॉल्व इट, कि सेलर पे लगा रखा है तो क्या करना है, बाहर पे लगा होगा तो क्या करेंगे. क्लियर? So I think in the first class itself you are able to solve a question of 8 marks. That means we are relating this everyday lecture with the past year question also. Clear? So at the end I will just recap that what we have done in this first lecture. There are, in terms of the syllabus, there are 4 units: introduction to economic trade-off, how market works, then role of the government, and individual decision and interaction. It is mainly the content is chapter number 1 to chapter number 11 main Q, chapter number 1 to 11. So 11 chapter wo hai without any gap, and one chapter 21 is for the household consumer theory. So 11 and this 12 and 13, and you can say half chapter, so about 13. So content is not बहुत ज़्यादा कम भी नहीं है, because 13 chapter all this you have to cover it, but all chapters are not of equal weightage I will say, और उसमें time ज़्यादा नहीं लगना. So there will be some basic chapters and there will be some chapters which will take a lot of time, like this chapter itself 21. So we are doing actually chapter unit number 2 and 3. ठीक है, ये continue रहेगा. 2 or 3 में we have started with elasticity of demand, and then we have come to the concept of application of the term elasticity of demand, and in that application I am doing incidence of tax. So again I say syllabus में जहाँ पे आप ये question देख रहे हैं, तो like the chapter number 8 is application है, cost of taxation है. तो हमने जो last question कर रखा basically ये 8 का कर रखा है. Concept of elasticity was chapter number 5. So I am not saying that chapter is complete. Just we are using a concept and relate it with the application. Another concept relate with the application. That will be the format. Clear? So I think I have explained all in this first. Still, if you have any query related to any content that has been discussed in the lecture, because if you have any problem related to any topic or understanding or any query, you can call me directly on this number. Clear? So I think this lecture and this overall session of introductory micro of semester 1 will help you to build the base for economics. It is the micro is the base for economics. So if that base is very strong, foundation is very strong, then it becomes easier for you in semester 3, 4 and so on. So first semester is for introductory micro, second is for introductory macro. So first year is basically introductory, second year is going to be the intermediate, and third year is going to be the advanced, and then fourth the further specialization. Clear? So we'll continue with this. Thank you.